to adopt the agenda as circulated. Moved in second. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda anybody would like to move for discussion later? No. Not seeing any. I will look for a motion to adopt the agenda, the consent agenda as circulated. So moved in second. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Adoption of prior minutes, November 18th, 2021, Downtown Advisory Committee minutes for receipt. And we also have a recommendation that the committee approve the Main Street clock as described to be installed in Triangle Park. And the committee recommended to council that staff be directed to investigate the Triangle Park located for power and feasibility to install Main Street clock. I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes first for receipt.
So moved.
Moved in second. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And then what do we do with the recommendation from the committee CAO?
Through the chair, with the adoption of the minutes, part of the resolution is to support the Downtown Advisory Committee's recommendation to investigate the feasibility of Triangle Park as the location for the Main Street clock. We do have an image of the clock, and the Director of Development Services can speak to it if you need some more information with regards to that.
Just a little more information if we could.
Thank you, Worship. The committee met and talked about several different options. A couple of the councillors were part of that meeting as well. They decided on the Main Street clock, which is the four-sided clock there. And it was thought that that'd be best for council to direct the staff before we look into some of the possible locations. The committee's ideal location was the Triangle Park spot. Thank you.
Thank you. For a motion to adopt the recommendation from the Downtown Advisory Committee. So moved.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion or questions on that recommendation? Not seeing any, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to delegations and petitions, we've got 3 this evening. The first one is all over Theater Society, a budget presentation. We've got Kenn, Oldfield, the president, Leah, Foreman, the manager, and Gordon, Hahn, the treasurer. And I will pass it over to Leah.
Thank you, Your Worship, to listening councillors. Just one thing, Gordon Hahn is no longer the treasurer. We actually have a new addition. Don Brogan is actually now our treasurer. He is on.
Okay.
Yeah, so last year was definitely a strange year, and so we continually planned and replanned.
Just so it gets picked up in the mic.
Okay. We were able to do some live stream shows, and we were able to do 5 dance studios, and they came and recorded their year-end shows, and we were able to give them some affordable options because they had added costs with the fact that they were recording, so the videographer, as well as they were not able to sell tickets, so we supported them and their dance performances. And so at our AGM this year, I was going to tell you that we did bring on Don Brogan, and Gordon Hahn is still on our board, but he has stepped down from treasurer. And we also lost Wendy Newman, because our bylaws state that you can only be on the board for 4 terms, and she was at the end of her 4th term. So that happened on our board, so that's a big thing. So right now we are currently in the middle of getting through the backlog of all the events that we have been planning through the pandemic, and we are seeing our patrons return in a very strong way. And there is still some reluctance, and we do understand that. And we are continuing to plan and change as the rules around the pandemic change. So the budget that was presented is, so it shows the year-to-date for the 2020-21. It shows our current budget, which was approved and what we're working with, and the requested budget for the RDOS that was sent to the RDOS where it usually does. Sorry. So as you can see, the budget for the 2020-23 is proposed sort of status quo, as if we're going back to mostly normal. This year's budget is a little different because we, of course, are through a few months of the year. We're still not sure what everything's going to look like. The biggest thing on the current budget is that the artist fees are very high, and that is because we are presenting a lot of shows that we have been planning and replanning for 20 months now. So the budget for those, the artist fee budget is quite high, and then you'll see our request for 2020-23 goes back down to a more reasonable request, or a reasonable idea of what we're going to be doing. We are seeing more renters coming back than we kind of expected, so that's a really positive thing. And people are really excited about getting out and doing things for our community and in our community. So we're really happy about that. The other document that was sent along was just a little review of what is going on with the grant that the town of Oliver was awarded to us, and that is helping our local groups return to the theater and alleviating some of the strain, especially since we are currently only at 50%. So in the month of October, there was $2,085 of the grant was used. For November, we're going to see about $2,500 of the grant being used. So we see us using the grant for the next year and maybe 2 years down the road. Any questions?
Do you have any questions for Leah? Councilor Benjamin?
Can you just, thank you for the presentation. Can you just describe again the rental charges and fees? I didn't quite understand. Like, I understand that you've been planning and replanning and replanning and then replanning again. I don't understand that.
Right, well, just whether the rentals and charges are what we charge out for groups coming in, and whether or not they're going to return, whether or not people are wanting to rent the theater, and we are seeing that. We had speculated that it wasn't going to be that high, and it's actually, we're seeing more return to normal on those.
That's good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like you have any more questions for Leah, so
Okay.
Thank you for that presentation. I will definitely be watching to make sure the budget numbers are correct at the RDOS. And hoping that you have the most prosperous 2022, especially that when Interior Health lifts the restrictions in this area and we can go to 100% capacity as they are in the Lower Mainland. So
Yes.
Thank you for working through all the challenges that you've had to work through in the last year and a half. And I think there's a good appetite to come and see some of the shows that you're putting on. It looks like you've got a tremendous sort of variety of performers coming to the Oliver Theatre.
Great. Well, thank you.
Oh, Councilor McNeil?
I did want to make one more comment. Thanks. What you said just jogged my memory. In the report, it talks about things that you've done for the past year, kind of just trying new things, and one of them is the drinks and snacks and the seats. I attended a show, my brother was playing there a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised to see drinks and snacks in the streets and during the seats, and I asked before going, am I allowed to do this? Am I supposed to be hiding this? It was a nice change.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it sounds like it went really well.
It is going really well. We're going to continue to monitor it, whether it's working, whether it's not, and I think we'll keep it. We'll just have to keep seeing how people like it.
For sure.
Good.
That's nice.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is from the Oliver Tourism Association in Lobb. He's up.
Ours is short and sweet. What do you want us? Hot seat.
2 seats.
I'll take one up. Here. You get the middle.
The little thing that clips on it. No, the other end.
I think it's still on.
It is, yeah.
I'm gonna check clear here as well.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, good to see everybody. Thank you very much for having us. Okay, we're obviously all over tourism. Just gonna start this up for you from our side. Okay. So, we want to start by going through our budget, give you a little overview of what the year was, what direct impacts, challenges we faced over the course of the year, different initiatives we're looking at creating for 2022. Some of the positives too, obviously with all the challenges come some positives and some learning curves. And then discuss the budget, 2022, and our focus for 2022. So first of all, Board of Directors, we've got Judy Bourne, our chair, from Uncorked. We've got Troy Revendahl from Continue Sellers, who's our treasurer. Richie Kendrick, Daniel Hutton, Alexis Romanis, Ravina Jalal, Jean-Marc Enixon. And then we've got our advisory board with Councillor Schwarzenberger and Councillor Mattis. Great people, all very supportive. So what we do, obviously, we're all aware, we operate a visitor center for one thing. We also identify and promote different experiences within Oliver is our goal. We support tourism, we support local businesses, we try to support the community as best we can, creating different marketing messages, telling the story of Oliver is basically what we do. So, the past year, it's been fantastic. We've pretty much seen everything but locusts so far, so it's fantastic. So we've had, beginning of the year, we obviously had the health orders in place. We had, coming out of 2020, we were feeling pretty positive, pretty optimistic that we were going to see a different kind of year coming into the new 2021. So we looked at starting off with, like I said, the health orders at first, with the idea that, okay, how long can this last? What is with the vaccines coming on, different things going forward, felt pretty good about what was going to happen. Then we had health advisories, followed by a heat wave, followed by wildfires. We also had more travel advisories. And one of the things we found too is that part of it being with the news itself, when Central Okanagan was hit with an advisory from the provincial government, it was notified that do not travel, do not come, don't message traveling to the entire Okanagan. That's what basically came out of that. So that provides a few more challenges for us. So we had those, followed by the beginning of thinking, okay, we can still do this. We can pull off some events. We can do this. And ourselves, along with all of our partners and different businesses throughout the Okanagan, whether it be Ironman, Grand Fondo, pick out all the different people that are also putting on events. We looked at the opportunities and we said, okay, we can still do this. This is going well. Things happened by this point, July 1st. We're good. So what that meant for us is putting a lot of our efforts into beginning the process, start the planning, doing the promoting, the marketing behind this. So we had all this going, and also realizing too that at any point in time, there was the possibility that something could happen, but we were very hopeful. So we went ahead, started the process, started the planning, feeling really good, and then we got the notification that we were all shutting back down again. So that was a great time too. We also experienced labor shortages, but that wasn't just us, that was the entire valley. That was pretty much everybody in BC, and actually across Canada, so it wasn't just that. Followed by the most recent events, sure, floods, slides, and road closures. So those things all in total made for a pretty interesting year. And we just actually got off a call with Destination BC and TIA BC, which is a Travel Industry Association. And for the first time ever heard Walt Judas, who's a very positive person, come out and say, I can't believe what we faced as a province this year. But with that said, one thing I can say is that through all this, we've actually learned a lot. Everybody has. We've all learned resilience. We've all learned the fact that we're still standing and that there's still an opportunity going forward. So we've learned a fair bit from this. So what we saw specifically in the Okanagan, this is pertaining to just the Okanagan, but from TIA BC, Destination BC, and Thompson Okanagan Tourism, we saw for the first time in recent memory, less than 100% occupancy in the accommodators across the province. So it's the first time in a long time. So what we're seeing now is, for the most part, a lot of travelers deciding and choosing to go to the coast, going to Saskatchewan, going to Alberta, versus coming to the Okanagan for the first time, and mostly because of all the different things that are hitting, and the fact that, do they make plans? How do they make these plans? So, going forward with a positive, positive mindset, we have our team. And I gotta say, like, through all the different things that we faced, through different conversations, through different interactions, and through all the challenges we faced this year, the team of people that we have been very positive, very supportive of the town, and are very proud of this town. They really want to put the best foot forward. So, an amazing group of people. So, very grateful that we have these people along with the board. So, the visitor center. So, the visitor center, once again, we opened, and then we saw some closures. We opened, we had some closures. We opened, and we had a heat wave. We had people asking for water and bathrooms. But we did see people coming throughout the course of the year at different times. And we did see a majority of people, obviously, from BC still. BC is still obviously our main market. We started to see a little bit of an influx of Albertans coming toward the middle part of the year, but obviously with border closures, very few, if any, Americans, which we anticipate will be changing now. We did see some Europeans toward the end of the year, so we did start to see that market come back. What we're also seeing, though, too, is last year we benefited from the fact that we had, with the border closures, we had the snowbirds remaining in town. Whereas this year, borders opening, we're seeing a bit of a difference. So numbers this year, we were down probably about 1,000 from last year, which, considering everything we've gone through, that's pretty impressive. So what we're looking at doing still, we still have designs on working and focusing to create that hub, the visitor center hub. With everything that's going on, this is a brilliant way to go forward. We want to go forward with the cafe. Last year the cafe was cut short because we had somebody lined up with an RFP that was dialed in to go, but labor shortages didn't allow them to actually jump forward. But this year we're hoping to jump on. If not, we have other opportunities in the hopper. We also have the bike potential. One thing we did see a lot of, I'd say about 60% of our people that came through were focused on cycling. Whether it be e-bikes, whether it be bringing their own bikes to travel around the area, but cycling was number one by far as people coming to the town. So we want to go forward with those things and create more social events at the visitor center. So with membership, the things we could do, we decided to go forward with more imagery, supporting more of the storytelling, more of the digital side of things. So we upgraded the website again, we upgraded the events calendar, created a better scenario for people to post their events and have more dynamic interaction with the website. We've also featured itineraries focused on the businesses to create and tell the stories of the people in the area and the businesses, and really tell who is Oliver. Why are you coming here? You want to know the people when you come to this town. So when you go on the website, everybody here has been on the website, right? Okay. Okay, good. So we're on the website, the features. In the features is all the stories of different people, different businesses. So if you haven't fully explored it, go through and read those stories, incredible stories. And great visuals, which is the key. We've also focused on collaborative marketing. We've hooked up with different partners. The one thing, actually not the one thing, but one of the many things that have come out of this pandemic and crisis and different world is we have formed more relationships and more collaborative marketing opportunities. More opportunities to learn and engage with not just us, but with also different towns or areas within the region. So I think we've done a good job of connecting, which is incredible. Our social media, about a year and a half ago, was at 700 followers. We're now at 4,400 for Instagram, 4,400 for Facebook. So it's gone up exponentially. So the visuals and storytelling really helped. We also make a point of, with the newsletters and communication, to tell the story, but also to bring people information as far as funding opportunities, resources to help. Things like supporting mental health through all this, which has been very, very key. So we've had a good response from that. We see about, for the website itself, we see about 10,000 plus visitors a month for the website. So basically this is a little bit more of the membership, what we're trying to do for next year with enhanced programming and upcoming things, upcoming events. So some of the campaigns we did last year, obviously one of the biggest things being funded by and being supported especially by TIBC, Destination British Columbia, and Destination Canada, is that we also have to follow along with different messaging guidelines. There's certain things we can say, certain things we can't say. So at certain points we can't say, like we said before, you can't say, come now, when we couldn't say that. We couldn't say, come here. So we had to be like, you know, know before you go. So know before you go was the main messaging across the board for all of us. So that constantly was a banner on our website advising people what to do, what emergency situations they may find themselves in, but check with different businesses. We never said, don't come, we just said, know before you go. Right? We also hosted travel writers. We were involved with the 100 by 100. One of the big campaigns that came out too, one of our members, our board members drove on a passion side, was the barrel signage. So you may see now a lot of barrel signage around the town. We've sold, I think, about 22 barrel signs right now, which is fantastic, and more are coming on a weekly basis. So we have the enhanced website, we've got bi-weekly newsletters. We the Visit South of Okanagan program, which we talked about a year ago, 2 years ago. We have the, like we said at the start of the year, we got the posters up, which you'll see in one of the slides. Working more collaboratively with Destination Soyuz, the Soyuz Indian Band, and all the different regional partners. Oh, and everybody here has bought some merchandise, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, back 1 second. One other thing too is the wayfinding. So when we said about cycling being very important, a lot of the questions, the calls, the people that come in, cycling is incredibly important. We're seeing that the hiking, cycling, the adventure side. Obviously the wine is paramount in this area, but also things for the 4 seasons, which are very key. The cycling and the hiking are paramount. They're coming on strong. We're seeing more of it all the time. So the wayfinding and the opportunities that exist around that are going to be key for us going forward. So you can see top left, you can see the posters. So if anybody's flown out of Penticton, you see the posters for Soyuz, Oliver, and Penticton. Right there as you go out the gates. So it's fantastic to see that. So we had some good hits. Then obviously the 100 by 100 with all the different partners. The barrel signage, the merchandise. And we also worked on different things. We thought, okay, let's focus on picnicking. Let's tell people a story about picnicking here. Incorporate the different businesses and tell a picnicking story. So you can hike and picnic, take a basket, go off to Oliver Reed's, go off to Buffalo, grab food here, grab wine, and come out and explore the area. There's some of the barrel signage that went out. And when I said with our social media, back to the fact that it hits, we're fortunate to have a professional photographer in-house. So one of the things we've done is try to incorporate people with different skills. So we do as much as possible in-house, is what we try to do. So things that would normally be farmed out, we try to keep it in-house as much as possible to absorb the cost and make those things work. So you see the photography, like I said, it's gone up exponentially as far as the visitation. So the picnics, the biking, and some great food. So back to social media, the newsletters, different ways we communicate across the board to our members and the businesses at large. One of the things we also did, we also created some videos too. So I don't know if we have it, it's on the stick, but we created a couple of videos as well to support the community.
Mike?
That's one of them, yeah. Just that one and the other, yeah. Thank you. Really great song there too, but. And also on YouTube, different social media channels. The idea is like just quick hits, and the idea behind that too is from a messaging standpoint. And the idea behind that too is the idea that we want to create something that was more imagery, because depending on the messages we can do, we can pull things out of that, and put those in, and then use it as a hero piece, and then bring things back out of it, tie it in here, tie it in there, and also try to get that feeling of what open spaces are again, and what it means to kind of explore a little bit, without using the words. So it's we had some great response so far. Anybody want to dance? I don't know. So with the Festival of the Great, Cask and Keg, like I said, we dug in this year hoping to get that off. And I won't lie, it was pretty dance. It was pretty emotional to have that moment where we realized we couldn't do it for everybody. It was a tough one. But we know what we want to do with it, and we created a bunch of scenarios around the event to say, okay, instead of 2 days, we want people to stay here longer, so we're going to have 3 days. So we started off with a kickoff party, incorporate the wine village, and have the kickoff party to begin, and then move into traditional Festival of the Great Cask and Keg, but also add in different events to go with it. So the one thing with Cask and Keg is it never had an anchor event, never had like that sort of like, way to kind of, like you have the grape song, Festival of the Great. So with Cask and Keg, have a little beer Olympics in the middle of it. Also bring in a couple other things, like the Amazing Race. So we did the Amazing Race as a little test pattern last year. It went off really well, so incorporating that into the event as well. Then I'm looking at a bike component, so something called Crush the Climb. So that's a 4.7 kilometer climb, like a time trial, starting at the visitor center, going to the top of Fairview Mountain. And then we've got some prizes to support that, and great buy-in. And of course the grape stomp, that will stay status quo. The visitor guide. We looked at the visitor guide for the last couple of years, and ways we could enhance that. This is the one from last year, but we reviewed a plethora of visitor guides that we wanted to go forward with, because some people now are going toward digital. So it depends on, we still have people that want the hard copy, but digital is kind of definitely a way that's going. So we want to sort of mix that up. So we're going to do a good portion of digital next year, but also have a version of this, but a smaller size, because people want the smaller size they can take with them and incorporate more maps. So we're working on maps to go with that. And one example, which is in my car, it's fantastic, is Nelson Kootenai Lakes. So Nelson Kootenai Lakes produced a great guide, and they're also helping us devise this one. So when that one's ready, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy. So budget. Thank you.
That's the one?
Yes. Yeah. So, let's read this. Okay.
You got the mic?
Yeah, I got Mike. Okay, so we broke down the budget as far as the year to date for 2021. As far as what we went through right now, obviously this is up until November. So we had the RDOS fee for service. We were fortunate. Thank you very much for the one-time grant for COVID. That was hugely beneficial, as well as our fee for service for the visitor center in Destination British Columbia. So, like I said, last year, obviously, we had the shortfall because we weren't able to present or put on the events last year. So that's a huge portion of the income for our services. Revenue, we did go through a little bit of merchandise this year with the 100 by 100. So we did see a pickup there. We used some support for that to sort of combine our efforts with everybody as a group. Then scroll down a little bit. Thanks. Then we had obviously our grants, other grants last year, which was one was Destination Fee. We procured a grant from Destination DC to help with building different programs surrounding adventure, which we did. What you see there for 2022 proposed, one thing we're looking at right now, we're waiting to hear back on. So part of that $38,000 for 2022 is a $30,000 BCFFE for the events and festivals that were canceled this year. So it's basically 20% of revenue from the government to cover some of the costs. So we applied for that, and we're waiting. We should find out by next week if we get that. Obviously, everything else, membership guide. The guide we costed out based on the size of the guide, looking at about $6,000 from ad space. website income, and MRDT, that's the big one. So MRDT, we got the application through, which we talked about. That one came through. We got our first installment last week before. So the first installment was $24,000. And so we're looking at how do we gauge that based on the fact that it came in, which we're absolutely excited about. It was a long process, and thank you all for your support, because that was a long process getting that through. And we were one of I guess the few ones this year that managed to get everything through really well. I think there were 3 or 4 of us that got through on time, so it was great. So with that, we're trying to gauge what that means over the course, extrapolate that over the course of the year, all 4 quarters. Given the fact that it was, it came in after, it kicked in August 1st, right when we were also shutting down, and when we also had all these other crises. So we don't know for sure what this will look like based on that, and the fact that we were also closing down different events and everything else during that period of time. So we're hopeful that that's based on the course of the year, and that's our estimate for what it will look like. It's pretty, I wouldn't say it's conservative, but I also wouldn't say it's over the top either. So that's, we looked at our budget, we moved down. Thank you. Also,
Adding in the festival.
yeah, oh yeah, I left my glasses in the car too. So adding in the festival, so we're looking at ideally with the festival, the event itself coming through, would be about $60,000 revenue from the event. Should the event go forward, which we believe it will, and then the revenue we can generate from the festival, that will be the income. So other revenue, the kitchen lease. We still plan, like I said, to go ahead with the cafe. So our hope is to generate about $3,000 in revenue from the cafe. So expenses. We've got a lot of expenses. So we've got, advertising, you'll notice from last year, what we've done in the past couple of years, because of the situation we've been in too, we really try to monitor expenses. We really try to find ways to cut costs and save as much revenue as possible. So every chance we had, there were different opportunities to advertise. We chose to try to go as best we could to be collaboratively advertising. We would jump in and co-market with partners. We find other ways to express our messaging. We really relied, like I said, on the in-house as best we could to do the social media, everything else, instead of farming out. When it came to times to bring in the travel writers, we did as best we could to host them collaboratively. So we could host them to save funds, but also bring them in and expose them as best as possible to the community. Merchandise, we look to pick that up next year and try to drive some more merchandise in. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So so the visitor guide itself, what we're looking at based on what it cost to produce the previous guide, we're reducing the number because we are going more digital. So we anticipated reducing the cost of the guide. From the conversations we've had with different partners, we're looking at around $12,500 to produce the guide. Okay. Obviously, it will be an offset of $6,000 by advertised sales.
Last previous year was 26.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just so you know, it used to be 26,000, so it's now down to 12. So.
Yeah. So definitely, thank you. We definitely brought costs down a fair bit on that. Because I guess previously we were doing about 30,000 editions of paper going out. So bringing that down exponentially. So event expenses. Obviously there is some investment in the micro events, trying to create smaller events and trying to, as far as marketing. The one thing too is what we're seeing because of the fact that not just ourselves, but talking to, like I said, Grand Fondo, talking to Ironman, talking to all the different businesses that are out there, is that all of us have lost about 2 years now of events. We've all lost 2 years of time that generates that drive to come back. So for us, the biggest thing is trying to drive that message home and bring people back to an area right now. What we're seeing is that people are also a little more timid about coming back because of the fear or the stigma of natural disaster at this point in time. So we want to bring people back, and that's part of the drive. So we're looking this year, all in, everything in, but a shortfall of about 4,000. Right there.
That's for next year.
For next year, it's 2022.
The middle one is the actual.
Yeah. This year we did fantastic. Thank you.
D column was our projected budget.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We still have our loan repayment for COVID, the COVID business relief loan of $40,000. That will come due at the end of next year as well. So.
Yeah. Any questions?
I got one.
Yes.
The loan repayment is, did you not get 40,000 and you got forgiven 10?
That's
That,
Right,
so-
yeah, yeah.
So you don't have to pay 30.
30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what Valley First.
That's great.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just back to the loan repayment, because was that in the budget?
No,
Okay, so that's actually more like a $44,000.
34.
34, yeah.
Oh, because there's 10 out of
Yeah.
40. Okay.
shortfall.
Do you have plans for making up the shortfall?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But you know, a lot of that, just to speak to the MRDT, from that perspective, we chose 85,000 as a number. That should be significantly higher, if all the stars align, but we can't count on it.
So the 24,000 has been since August, but with a greatly reduced amount
Greatly
of
reduced.
occupancy.
Correct.
Then the only other thing I wanted to comment on, and I think it's been sort of like this historically and then now as well, is when I look at these promotional materials for Oliver, a lot of the time I think, where's the town? So it's always, I see a lot of the focus sort of on the surrounding area, and I think it would be really great to see some, you know, like a promotional video of like that focuses on our restaurants and hotels and our theaters and local businesses and those sorts of things, so that we're also trying to keep people in the town and spending their money here as well, instead of, you know, coming and staying here and then going off into the surrounding area to do things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think what you'll see too is mostly on our features right now. This is the first crack based on the fact of what we could message. So we wanted to, instead of like just saying drive them here, we wanted to have sort of timeless in a sense. But at the same time, what we've done as far as like the town and the businesses is really focus on the features. So the features, and then with our Instagram and our Facebook, really drive those home and really support the town and the messages that way. So yeah, so when you look at the features, they're specific, like drill down, full on storylines, like who started this business? Well, why did they start this business? What was their passion behind this business? And what drove them to come to Oliver? If they're not from here, why did they come to Oliver? So those stories are all part of it too, and we definitely get those out there. And we're repurposing those, and we're also doing, like I said, we did a People of Oliver special, but we're also doing more when it comes down to the pipeline this year with the video segments to drive in like the interviews and those timelines. Absolutely, to your point, that's fantastic, yes.
Part of our funding is also member-driven, so we count on people becoming members of the Tourism Association, and then we will feature them stronger. So part of that is to show, when you're asking where's the town or where's a lot of the other businesses, is we have to do a better membership drive, so that is big on our list too. And then as people become more members, we spend more time on them and their business as well.
Absolutely.
So it becomes a symbiotic relationship.
For sure. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Schwarzenberger?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to thank Ian and Judy and Troy for the presentation. These guys are a really hard-working, dedicated board, along with the other people that are on the board, and I've really enjoyed being a part of it in my small way. So thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilor Miller?
Thank you, and as everyone has said, thank you for the presentation. I just have a couple of questions about the budget. It's kind of hard to see from back here, but I think I understood as we went along. So I have three questions. One of them is about that shortfall. So I know this budget isn't being presented to us for approval, it's going to the regional district, but I'm just wondering, is that the way it's going with the shortfall, and we'll just kind of best of luck to us this year?
No, it's just, it's what we could put together for this meeting more than anything.
Right.
So,
That's another stuff coming in the pipeline.
We've also been very conservative with our fall festival weekend. Like normally the revenue is 3 times what we're budgeting, but because we don't know exactly what we are going to be able to host or be allowed to host, as well as what the industry will be to be coming together in a large event like that, we'd rather again be conservative instead of shoot for the moon and then go, oh my goodness,
and have to dial
we're
back.
$35,000 short, right? So yeah. So.
And my second question was about Fall Festival weekend.
Yes.
Is that all it costs to put on?
No.
Yeah.
This is a scaled down version.
Yeah. Yeah.
For 2022, it's still a scaled down version?
That was that revenue was 60,000 as a scaled down version, with only $35,000 in expenses as a scaled down version.
Isn't that what it's showing for the coming year?
Twenty
But that's
twenty.
different, too, yeah.
So you're still working with scaled down?
Scaled down
Yeah.
version.
We can scale up, you know, when we can open up, we're like, okay, now we can go forward with this. So right now, we're trying to be as conservative as possible based on what we've seen, and not knowing what 2022 is gonna hold right now.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's easier to dial back.
No, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And my last question was about wages. We skipped over that section.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of wording on the side that I couldn't quite read.
Oh,
So it looks like
I
we've
couldn't
gone
read
up
it
quite a
either,
bit. Just-
Yeah, we are looking to add a person, and that's where that extra comes in.
Which is,
Why the jump?
And
which
the
is
added
part of the
person is-
MRTT.
Which was, yeah, exactly,
It's part of the 5-year plan.
part of the funding. We need to bring in an events and more marketing specialism.
Oh, that's what that person said. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome, thank you.
Actually, one more slide for you.
Sure.
Actually. This slide? Sorry.
What was
Is
the
that-
recovery? It was our recovery
Well,
slide.
but also, I think that's the partnerships, so I should.
I don't know that much.
Sorry. Sorry.
We're gonna eat up all your time.
I only got 17 more slides in the first half.
We'll break it.
But in the second presentation, we've got.
Okay, so it's called, oh, right, sorry. It's the next one.
Good to me.
And it's called the MRDT.
No.
No.
Can you use
Just like.
Oh, there you go. I guess.
or only presentations?
Oh, yeah, new presentation, we'll down at the bottom right there.
Oh, she's got the right screen on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's down here.
There's that. Okay, I want to show you that too.
Go back.
And then,
Just go forward when we're
Sorry.
recovering.
so yeah. Oh, right. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
Stop.
That's
Stop. Okay, go forward.
good.
Okay.
It's fun.
Okay. So yeah, so.
Sorry, I was trying to go up
No
to
worries. Thank you.
something on the stick.
So we got so partnerships. Just to sort of reiterate, just want to thank all the partners we've had this year and going forward. Just to clarify for what we're doing going forward is that the biggest things that come out of our conversations and the ADMs and meetings we've had over the past few weeks, and actually over the past 18 months, reputation management is the biggest thing for us going forward. So we want to make sure we manage that correctly and remind people it's going to be, this is the place to come, this is the place to be. So collaborating, very, very key, and bringing people back, because what we're seeing too is that as the borders open up, more people are researching other places, we want to drive them back to here. So focus going forward, restore the festivals, events, continue promotion. We want to make sure that people want to come back here, work on wayfinding and accessibility. Accessibility is a very big thing as well. We want to make sure that's one of the priorities. And continue to build partnerships and collaborate. So going forward, so I say thank you all very much. Check out the website if you haven't. Make sure you read those things, everybody. And thank you.
Thank you. I can hear the passion in your voice there, Ian, and it's good that it's still there because it has been trying for sure. So hoping for the best in 2022. At least we did get the 100 to 100 in just. That's totally great for the challenge. And if you have an e-bike component in that crush of time, I'm in. That's cheating.
Who's got the last e-bike?
There's gotta be an e-bike component in there.
Oh, there will be.
Perfect.
Good try.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Go all over 2021. Do we have Denise? Denise up?
She's gonna call.
We're calling her.
Oh.
Where she goes. Sorry. I used my sleeve.
Hello there. Hi Denise, we just have you on speakerphone.
Good.
Hello, Denise.
Hi.
Hi, have you got a bit of a presentation or just want to speak? Hello, did we lose you?
She might not be able to hear you, Mayor.
She might not be able to hear you, maybe.
Yeah, I think maybe you had dialed me twice, or can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Can you hear me fine? Apparently not. Apparently not.
Yeah, I can go through the presentation that I sent in. Yeah, I think maybe can you hear me okay? Yes, I can.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
perfect. Okay, so it's been an eventful year, and I know I kind of did a report not too long ago. Yep, I am speaking. Can you hear me?
Huge delay. That was, you
That's
said
what
that
it
like
is,
a
you're
minute
hearing
ago.
a huge delay.
Yeah, Denise, we're getting a huge delay. When I'm speaking to you, it actually shows up, like we can hear it 15 seconds later.
So what should I do?
Does she have her computer on? She probably should turn the webcast off at home.
Diane says to turn the webcast off at home.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just looking at my screen.
Okay, well that seems to be fine now.
Okay, well, you go ahead, and when you're done, let us know.
Yep. Can you hear me now, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, no, I was just going to go over the report that I had sent in. And I know I had just presented not too long ago. So basically I'll just go into Shop Local as we're working towards our Shop Local campaign. We wrapped up the downtown revitalization project, which hopefully everybody has been able to see around town with all of the poles and the rocks and down by the parking lot between the Oliver Garden restaurant and that section there. We finished that and put signage up for the town of Oliver, showcasing the branding and everything. So we'll wrap that up here soon too and highlight what all those sentences mean for everybody. But did everybody get a chance to see some of that revitalization we did?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So that's good. Yeah, that was a big part of the year. And then Shop Local was the other part, and we're just starting that again now as we move into Plaid Friday and small business season. So we've got some promotions going out for that. And walking downtown and talking with everybody about how to promote over the holiday season to get people to come in to their stores, right, to be a little bit more actively marketing. And I know now with the light up, some of the businesses we're working with to try to get them to participate, right, so that we can get some good energy downtown. And then also too, we did a bit earlier in the year, but I don't know if we mentioned it, but we did some research into the co-working sections in the downtown area and did lots of interviews with people about that so that we could be prepared if we wanted to keep going on that part of your Grow Oliver plan as well. So all in all, it was a pretty full year, and I think we accomplished a good amount within the time frames allowed, and certainly open to any questions from anybody.
Let me check. Councillor Schwarzenberger. Okay, Denise. Councillor Schwarzenberger. This is not Councillor Schwarzenberger. This is Mayor Johans. Thank you for that. I mean, I suspect it's been a challenging year dealing with COVID. You know, we were open and then we were closing again. But definitely looking forward to a better 2022. What kind of things do you see in 2022 that you would like to get or continue working on?
Well, certainly the downtown revitalization was very well received. Just a lot of interactions with businesses that may not in other ways interact with us, right? Just the different restaurants that we were able to connect with, and just a lot of them seeing activity, right? The painting and finding out what's going on, and oh, I didn't know there was a committee that did that, or, you know, call me next time you're doing something. So hopefully we could continue on with some smaller downtown revitalization projects just to keep that momentum going. And I think overall too is tagging on sort of to the overall tourism parts, like we're talking about wayfinding signage. There just seems to be everybody desiring to work together on a couple of projects to get people shopping in town more. Certainly with the downtown businesses, that's what it's about, right, is they want to see more foot traffic downtown. So I know part of it with Randy is we're making sure to connect with the businesses. Like I've been talking with the Dairy Queen and the potential other new businesses that are coming into town, you know, to get them connected with hiring and where they can go to talk to people about getting wage subsidy. So I think those are the two big ones, keeping that downtown revitalization and community feeling going, and then just the outreach with the businesses so they feel heard and they feel that, you know, they're not alone and, you know, struggling with whatever challenges have come their way with COVID and fires and heat domes and all that stuff.
Right, yeah. Well, thank you, Denise. Appreciate your efforts during these difficult times, and your feedback on what's important moving forward is much appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. All right, moving into water matters. 5460 Sumac Street, irrigation water charge for residential customers. I will pass it over to our CFO.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is just to bring to Council's attention a letter addressed to Mayor and Council, commenting on the difference in rates between agricultural and non-agricultural rate. There was obviously a non-agricultural customer. I know we had discussed these rates at the last meeting, and so this letter is, you know, kind of has some of the same similar concerns, but because it was addressed to Mayor and Council, I felt like it should be brought forward again. And thank you.
Thank you, CFO. I'm sure everybody's had an opportunity to read the report and when we attach letter. Are there any comments or questions for discussion? Councilor Michelle.
Well, we had a pretty good discussion last meeting, and this is the exact same topic again. There's a lot of people in the rural area that are paying this rate, and they're starting to wake up to the fact that, you know, it doesn't cost us that much money to pay that, to provide them with water. It's the same, I made that point last time, that it's irrigation water, the same water the farmers are using, and yet we don't want them to use well water because we don't have the capacity out there. And, you know, they're paying a lot of extra money, so. You know, I think what we should probably do, Your Worship, and I don't know if staff could put some kind of a report together for us, you know, giving us different options, because I have a hard time defending this. I mean, I don't. I mean, it's the exact same water, and we're not a utility that's here for profit. We shouldn't be. As a town of Oldfield, we should be. We've got to make sure we recover our costs, and that's what we're in the business of doing. And these people are paying exorbitant costs compared to what it actually costs to deliver the water. So I think there's, you know, there has to be some kind of a compromise. Maybe it's cut in half or so. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that it's not really very fair. We're ripping these people off, and it's not fair. So I don't know what the solution is. Maybe staff can look at putting a report together of different cost options for those people in the rural area. They're getting ditch water and have to pay the same costs as people who are getting well water, and that's where that fee structure came from, because it was the in town and it's well water in town. So I just know it's not, you know, I can sense their frustration because they know that it doesn't cost that to provide them with water. yet they're having to pay, you know, almost 4 times for their water, what it really costs, so.
Councilman Mattis?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have a whole different rate structure for a whole bunch of different water users, from agriculture, from residential, from commercial uses, from people that resell water. We charge for different size meters. We charge different fees for different things. This is just another piece of the puzzle, and it isn't a case of that we sell the water on the basis of it, what it costs us to get to each customer. We sell water on the basis of what it costs us to run the system as a whole. Some people will pay more, some people will pay less. There's no doubt about that. The system is set up that way. Ag users pay less because of the nature of the water, absolutely. This is, again, I go back to, it's not an ag use. If it were an ag use, I would say yes, give them the ag rate. But they're using a volume of water that justifies a higher charge. If they were using domestic water or well water, they would curtail their consumption in all likelihood. But their costs are no different than anyone else's in town for the same use. So it's an equity thing. You know, I know that Councilor Michelle sees it as inequitable, but I see it as equitable in terms of what the water is being used for. And the rate isn't the same for everybody. He's absolutely correct, and I don't think it should be.
Councilor Benjamin?
Thank you, Your Worship. We did have a nice long conversation about this just a couple weeks ago, and I wish I had notes from that conversation because there were some really good points made on both sides. My initial reaction to this, just as my initial reaction to the letter a couple of weeks ago, and I believe my reaction when we've had this conversation in the past, is that I don't see why we couldn't have a metered rate for non-agricultural, whatever the rural water, the one that we're talking about, I can't figure out which one it is there, but a metered rate where those that really truly believe that they're using below the amount that they're being charged can install a meter at their cost and pay what it says. I know that when we talked about that a couple weeks ago, there were some pretty good reasons why we wouldn't do that, which are not coming to me right now, which is why it would have been nice to have notes from that meeting. But I have the initial response today that I had a couple weeks ago. I don't see why we couldn't do something like that.
Councilor Schwarzenberg?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I mean, we discussed this a couple of weeks ago. In the report, the CFO mentions that it's not just the water rate, it's the parcel tax that are different as well. So when you combine the two, I don't know whether that makes the difference larger or smaller. But it says right in the report that agricultural property owners do pay a lower irrigation rate compared to non-agricultural property owners. They are paying a much higher parcel tax rate since it is based on the number of parcels. So
They've only got one parcel, they're only paying one parcel.
I
I don't know where that came from because.
But anyway, I would be fine with hearing a report from staff on comparing the rates and whatever the parcel taxes are, how that compares. Thank you. Councilor Benjamin?
Can I just ask the CFO to go through, like in the report at the beginning, we have in-town non-agricultural pressurized. I think this is where I'm getting confused because that, I believe, is what we're referring to, the non-agricultural parcels that are using agricultural water that are not in town. That's the first one, and then rural agricultural pressurized, and then in-town metered, no irrigation. So my understanding when I read this report was that those numbers are all in usage and parcel tax, or whatever would need to be included to create their water bill.
Yeah, so I have 3 of them there, just to show how it is different between the in-town non-irrigation, in-town no irrigation, and rural, right? It does look like in-town metered no irrigation, that annual rate is less than what someone, you know, has a non-agricultural rate using the canal water, right? It's about what they, but they choose, these people choose to use, have the irrigation valve turned on, and that's what triggers that charge, right? So there are customers that choose not to have the irrigation turned on, and they're not charged for that. So I'm not sure if I'm making it clear, but I'm just repeating what it says there. I think if those people who want to turn the irrigation on would want to pay based on how much they use, I would say let them put in a meter. You know, if you know it probably costs them about $1,000 to put in a meter if they want to keep using it, and then then maybe we'd start having some data. Like right now, we don't have any data of how much people use who use canal water, and it comes at a cost. And we're not really charging based on the water. We're charging based on the cost of the infrastructure. Like the water just comes, you know, it's a gift, but it's, you know, bringing that water to that home or to that farm is what costs a lot, and that's what they're paying for. And sometimes I don't think they don't see that, right? The people who are complaining, they're just thinking about the cost of the water, not the infrastructure. So, you know, I think that if I would give people that option, it would feel like they're doing something. You know, they could pay for it themselves. We can read it. It doesn't really cost much for us to read one other meter. And then we have some data on what people are using, and also if the irrigation system is leaking. You know, I would even love to have farms put in meters for that irrigation water, just so that you could get some data and you'd be able to see whether their systems are leaking. Because you can lose an awful lot of water on leakage, and you can really extend the life of your infrastructure if you get people to conserve water, because then you don't have to spend as much money on pumps, right, or digging a new well, or, you know, so there's something to be said for encouraging people to get meters. That's, but I can prepare another report that goes into more, you know, into more in-depth analysis as well.
Yeah, just add to it, we do not have a metered rate for irrigation water, so it's not something we can just come up right away. So anything change of rate structure will take some time.
Councilor Mattis?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is it possible, and it doesn't have it anywhere in here, how large is this property? The 50s?
Oh, it's a smaller acreage again.
But again, it's an acreage.
Yeah, it's like
without knowing, I'm just wondering if, I know the director's pretty good at this, that he might be able to pull it up very quickly.
Yeah. I thought it was under an acre again.
Well, I understand that, but
Yeah.
a half an acre represents 3 city lots. Okay?
Yeah, I did look at the size.
That's what I'm, the Director Houle might be able to bring up here. He's pretty relatively adept at this.
You almost
His journal is.
I've seen him do it before.
What's that? 0.623 acres.
That looks small.
0.623 acres.
0.6, so it's over half an acre, so that represents 4 town lots that he's watering for $800 per year. And the comparison that we have is 1 town lot watering $800 a year. So he's actually getting his water at a quarter of the price to water the same equivalent parcel. When I read his letter, his complaint is also about the rate that he pays in relation to farms. He thinks they should pay more, or he should pay what a farm pays when he's not a farm. Again, I go back to, we have different rates for different people. But this guy's using, he's basically watering 4 city lots for the price of 1. I'm not sure what the issue is.
Councilor Michelle.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think that that rate is the same rate in town and out of town. That's where that argument came from. I remember when it was first instituted. So in town, somebody who's got a half an acre, then he's watering for as well. I mean.
But he's paying metered in town.
Yeah.
This metered rate, the 864, is based on one normal city lot, not a half an acre in town.
I think as a town, we have to be a little leery. If enough of these people start catching on that they're paying way too much, then all of a sudden they turn on their well water and start paying their meter rate, because our pipes will not deliver enough water. So we have to be very careful as a town. That was all engineered so that all those lots got water from the irrigation system. So if all of them, if we piss enough of them off and they start using our well water, then we're gonna be in trouble in the rural area, because we're not gonna have enough water. We didn't engineer for that. So it's dangerous to say that they can just start using their domestic water, metered rate, and that's what they'll pay, because we as a town don't have enough water for that. Let's keep that in mind.
Based on the math in front of us, I would almost invite this particular person to go on town water, and he will watch his bill go from $800 a year to about $3,500 a year for the same size parcel. To water that same parcel with a meter is gonna be $3,500 a year. And he's actually getting a bargain, given the size of the parcel. If it was just a city lot, and he was using ag water, and paying the same as well water, then I could see your argument. But at this point, he's 4 to 5 times larger.
Councilor Antonina.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hesitate to ask staff to look into what it would cost or look like to create a metered rate for agriculture, because I know that these little asks that we throw out during meetings add a ton of extra work. But how much extra work would something like that be? Because this isn't the first time it's come up. It's not going to be the last time it comes up. And we throw around these sort of hypothetical, well, if this person's watering this and if they did that, but we don't really know. There are some people that are really saying, I don't water and I'm still being charged this, or I water my front lawn and I'm being charged this. So how much extra work would it be to ask for something like that?
Well, I think, there's peak times of year, and there's non-peak times of year, so we just find a way to fit it into the schedule, right? Like not at a time like this, or not when I'm doing audit, and not during tax time, or but we pick a time to do it. And I've done it for Roslyn too before, and done a comparison with other communities and tried to establish different rates. It's a bit of here there's comparisons we can make to other people using that canal water. But I think the big thing too is that nobody's really monitoring. Like, you're monitoring how much water you're producing, right? But we're not monitoring how much is being used, and so there's this gap, right? Because 100% of what you're producing isn't 100% of what you're consuming because of leakage, right? So until you really get to know what your users are using, it's it's still a guessing game, right? And otherwise you base your
Yeah, just a little bit on it is that you need to understand the in-town water rate structure is based on meter, right? Mm-hmm. The rural irrigation water rate structure is based on size. You cannot have a system have half based on size, half based on meter. That's the tough part. Last report, the similar user asked for the similar question is basically there is, I think, 69, so roughly 70 of these users all have under 1 acre, right? You cannot say, oh, why not we come up with a structure which give a metered rate to 70 less than 1 acre size user, but the rest of the users still based on size. Then your rate structure is basically based on 2 different models, right?
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, why can't we do that? Is it just because it's complicated, or?
But because it's very, you think about how you usually the water structure, right? You come up with, we are cost recovery based, basically all the money goes to reserve, go back to the system, right? So you calculate the whole system with expenditure, then you need to divide it by denominator, right? So in town, you denominate by the meter, so every is meter, right? So you use more meter, you pay more. But the rural system is divided by the size. So you have bigger size, then you pay more. How would you be able to do a hybrid system? Basically, you come with two different denominators and try to figure out what is the equalized way to do it. Because mathematically, you cannot do it, right?
Doesn't have to be equal.
Councillor Michelle.
We know how much water we pump. We keep track of that. We know how much revenue we take in, so it's a pretty simple calculation on a calculator as to what it costs per cubic meter to provide that water. Except for wastage or loss. Because the water that goes through the pumps goes into those orchards. So we know how much water goes into all those pumps, and we know how much revenue we're collecting. So it's a pretty easy calculation to figure out how much per cubic meter it's actually costing us to provide that water.
Then we have to shift everyone with the size-based rate structure to volume.
No, you can use that to figure out how much it costs and not shift, because a lot of the argument, or not argument, a lot of the problem with going to meters is the cost. I mean, when we first looked at it back in 1990, whatever it was like $5 million. I hesitate to think what it would be now. We're a very indebted municipality already. We're not taking on more debt to put meters in. Makes no sense.
No.
But we can easily figure out how much it costs us per cubic meter, plus or minus, to provide that water. I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean,
so we come up with that, with the cost of per meter. Then we still have two tier of the rate structure. One for metered rate for the 69, 70, less than 1 acre user, and the other still based on the size of the acre. Is that?
Or you could have a hybrid. It could be part of your report. That you have a hybrid. In other words, if it costs us 10 cents a cubic meter, I'm just pulling it out of the air, to provide irrigation water from the ditch, compared to 60 or whatever we're charging for well water, and yet those people are getting, if that's the calculation, the number we come up with is 10 cents, we could say, well, because you're non-agriculture, maybe you should be paying 35 cents. Now we're doing it arbitrarily and charging way more than it costs to provide that. There might be, it would be a political decision at that point, but I mean, you guys can get us those numbers. You know how much water we pump. You know how much revenue we collect. It's pretty easy to make that calculation.
The other complication is the reason the rate structure has two different rates, one for agriculture, one for non-agriculture, has its own purpose, right? Agriculture has its own, like circle and the average use of the water. But if you use not for non-agriculture, you basically are, what are your normals, right? Those are different usage. Like without putting into meter for every single 69 of these less than 1 acre, user, how you would know? Because someone would say, I let my lawnmower go on 7 days, 10 days without turning on, right? Unless you put into meter into 69 of these less than 1 week users. So there is a little bit complication. That's why I say we can do a study, propose a new rate structure, probably will take some time. That's all I try to say.
Do you have a comment, Councilor Leah?
Yeah, I guess from what I was understanding, from the description, I guess I was thinking initially that if there's 5 people that of the 70 that are unhappy, they could pay for a meter and pay for whatever the rate is that we come up with. But I think what you're suggesting is that if these are all under 1 acre parcels, then they would all have to follow the same program. And I suppose if right now the parcel tax is the 800 and something an acre, if everyone truly is only watering their front lawn and not watering their acre parcels, and maybe only using a couple $100, then that shortfall or the difference that we're then going to lose from those customers would have to be made up from the agricultural customers, which is something else to think about. not a big deal if you're talking about 1 or 2 parcels, but a big deal if you're talking about 7.
Got it?
That's it.
Alrighty. Anything to report this evening, Water Council should do?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just this evening's meetings.
Thank you. And Water Council Michelle?
Just this evening's meeting, Your Worship.
Okay. Moving to development permit, variance permits, development variance permit 6490 Park Drive. We'll pass this over to the Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Worship. This application is for a development variance permit for 6490 Park Drive. Just have to get the remote working 1 sec.
I may have to do it. You may have to do it.
Here, just tell me when you go to the next one. Oh, that's
The applicant is proposing to construct an 80 square foot addition to a single family dwelling, which features an expansion to the master bedroom. To facilitate the construction as proposed, a variance to zoning bylaw 13A is required. This is section 10.1.6A3 to decrease the minimum north and rear side parcel line setback from 1.5 meters to 1.1 meters. Here's the property location map. It's located in close proximity to East Side Grocery. East Side Corner, now it's called. There's a picture of the subject property. You'll see that the single family dwelling is in the center of the property with the garage at the back, and the vehicle access to this site is from the back street, which is East Side Lane. And the proposed addition is in the northeast corner of the property, and it's a small addition to the master bedroom as mentioned. The zoning of the property is RS1, low density 1. And the OCP is LR, low density residential. Photos of the subject property on the left is the Park Drive elevation of the subject property, and on the right is the East Side Lane elevation of the subject property. The left shows the proposed addition area, and the right also shows the proposed addition area. Left is another photo that shows where the addition will go, and then on the right is the view from the street. So you'll see, as I'll discuss in the next few slides, the addition really is not visible from the street. The site plan there, you'll see the small addition in the northeast corner with the variance reduction from 1.5 meters to 1.1 meters. The main floor plan and the building elevations there. It shows the addition is the same height as the existing building and the same finish. Staff comments regarding the variance. The existing setback for the single family dwelling is considered non-conforming. The building was built in the 40s, I believe, and it does not meet the minimum required setback of 1.5 meters. So any additions to the building requires that the current setback is adhered to. The proposed extension of the building will match in height and material type with the existing dwelling, thus ensuring that it blends in well. Furthermore, there is screening in the form of hedges along the north and east property lines, resulting in the addition being hardly visible from the neighbor to the north and from Park Drive. Options for council is that council may choose to support the recommendation, may choose not to, or may choose to refer it back to staff. And with that, the staff recommendation is that council approve development variance permit 2021-26 and that staff be directed to issue the permit. Thank you.
Any questions for the Director of Development Services? Councilor Mass?
I don't have any questions, but I just comment when I read through this, I was actually quite surprised the variance was required because the building's already non-conforming. And it's not like they're getting any closer to the property line. So once I understood what was going on, for me, it was like just a straightforward application. I didn't really see. It's unfortunate that we have to put them through the process in many respects. So I would move the council approve development variance permit 2021-26 and that staff be directed to issue the permit.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion or questions? Call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to bylaws, zoning amendment bylaw 1380.19, development permit with variances 6643 Lakeside Drive. I'll pass it over to the director again.
Thank you, Worship. This application is for 6643 Lakeside Drive. To discuss the zoning amendment bylaw 1380.19 and development permit with variances 2021-18. The applicant is proposing to construct 5 4-unit townhouses for a total of 20 units. Each townhouse unit features a double-car garage on the main floor, living space and a deck on the second floor, and 3 bedrooms on the third floor. The subject property is located within the multiple family development permit area of the OCP and requires approval for the design and to address landscaping requirements. Furthermore, the applicant is requesting a variance permit to waive the required loading space and to decrease front, rear, and north interior parcel line setbacks. Property location map is located in the yellow box on the screen adjacent to Tuckamudde Elementary School, in close proximity to Lakeside Resort and single-family homes on the west side. Here's an ortho map. The ortho is from 2017, so all of these buildings on the site have now been demolished. The OCP for the property is medium density residential, and the zoning is RM1. Photos of subject property on the left is the lakeside elevation, as well as the right photo. Photo on the left in this slide shows the north portion of the subject property, which shows our pump houses there, and on the right shows the south portion of the property. The left shows the east elevation of the subject property, same thing on the right. And this is the north elevation of the subject property off of Merlot. This is the photo that shows the site plan. So you'll see the access, which I'll get into a little bit more later in the presentation. The main access is from Lakeside Drive on the southwest corner of the property. And there's a 2-way drive aisle. When you come in, there's units, 20 units spaced out throughout the site. There is an elevation drop, which is likely why they sort of push the buildings more to the right. So it's basically flat where the buildings will be constructed. Just to talk about the housing needs report, it was completed in 2020 and it indicates that in order to meet basic housing demands by 2025, 59 3-bedroom units are required, which is broken down into 29 owner and 30 rental. The proposed construction will make a significant contribution towards this requirement, with the tenure of the units being unknown at this time. These are some photos that show the building elevations. So it is a flat roof design, which definitely has less of an impact on the neighbors, which I'll get into later on in the presentation. This is a landscape plan. It shows significant improvements to the site with large trees along the west property line, which will help to provide that buffer from the neighbors to the west. Individual grass backyards for residents with trees, and some xeriscaping as well at the entryways to add character to the development. The first floor plan, as discussed, is a double-car garage, so 2 parking spaces for each unit. Second floor, you'll see the dining and living space with the decks out the back, depending on which way the unit faces. The third floor plan shows a 3-bedroom layout. To talk about the zoning amendment, under the current RM1 zoning, a maximum floor area ratio of 0.45 is permitted, which allows for the construction of 20 units that are just over 1,000 square feet in size. The developer is proposing slightly larger units, 300 square feet larger, which equates to a floor area ratio of 0.59. So for this reason, a rezoning is required. You're not able to vary density, which is why there's a zoning amendment required. Staff do not consider that a 4-story building would be a proper fit in the neighborhood, and that's what would happen if you rezone to RM2 without the site-specific amendment, is it would then allow for 4 stories. Staff consider it wouldn't quite be a proper fit in the neighborhood, so therefore there should be some site-specific provisions added that place that maximum height for building and structures at 3 stories. If that was not added in, then technically the zoning could go ahead, maybe the development does not proceed, and then somebody comes with a 4-story apartment building in the future. That may not be a concern for council, but that's what, well, that's what you're here for, to make this decision. The maximum number of permitted units at 50 dwelling units per hectare will remain unchanged. Therefore, there really are no additional traffic impacts associated with the rezoning application itself. The current density actually allows for 21 units, and they're proposing 20. And this proposal will add 20 family-oriented units in close proximity to schools and other services, which is important in our community. Regarding the development permit, staff feel that the development meets the intent of the DP area as highlighted below. The front facade features multiple material types such as wood, vinyl, wood look vinyl, board and batten, and stucco, which adds character to the building. The lakeside drive frontage of the property will be improved with multiple trees and landscaping, and it will also provide a pleasant street image. Each unit has that deck at the second floor, as well as a private at-grade amenity space, as well as being adjacent to an elementary school and the beach. So there really is ample amenity space in the area. Garbage and recycling areas will be screened from view of the street, and the flat roof design will really reduce the height of the building. If they built a 3-story with a peaked roof, that's, depending on the slope of the roof, that's a 3.5-story building. So the flat roof design really helps in that nature. Talk about the variances a little bit. Regarding the loading space variance, staff consider that although there's not a dedicated loading space, the drive aisle width would accommodate a moving vehicle on that day. And then if you had a dedicated loading space, it would remain empty the majority of the time, and then it would reduce the amount of landscaping on site. Just speaking about the front parcel line setback for the 3rd story, the 3rd story of the southwest corner of Unit 5 will be set back 4.5 meters from the front parcel line, thus triggering the variance request. In this case, there's an additional 5 meters from the property line to the sidewalk, meaning that the building will sit almost 30 feet from Lakeside Drive, and the drop in elevation and the trees proposed along the frontage will help to reduce the visual impacts. So on the next slide is a site plan that actually shows what I'm talking about. So on the northwest corner of the development, well, let me point at the screen, but you'll see it says 6 to 4.5 meter front setback variance. That's the only point really that requires the variance request, is that sort of southwest corner of Unit 16 for the front setback. Now going to the next slide, the rear parcel line setback, there is a setback requirement of 6 meters for all 3 stories on the rear, and that's the side that faces Tuckalnuit School Field, so there really are no impacts, negative impacts associated with the variance request. 15 feet, so 4.5 meters still allows for that little bit of amenity space, and also by pushing the buildings back a bit, it does widen the drive aisle, which then allows for proper space for emergency vehicles. Then speaking about the minimum north interior side parcel line setback, that's for the 3rd story. So, and it's just for the north property line only, as the south property line has the proper 6 meter setback. The portion along the north property line is adjacent to the forest right-of-way and the town's pump houses, which are unlikely to be negatively impacted, and the first 2 stories comply with the setback requirements. Thus, staff do not see any concerns with the minimum variance request. And finally, just speaking about the access, the historical access to the property has been through Merlot Avenue, and it's through it's actually a crown parcel that Fortis has a right-of-way over. So the developer was in the process of going through this, and it's taking a while, so we decided to move forward with the application. The main reason why we felt comfortable moving forward without that access really approved is because technically you could just have one access from Lakeside. They can come in and they can turn around and leave out through Lakeside. I really don't see that there will be issues with going through Merlot. There may be issues with paving it, which is what they would like to do, but I mean, it's historically been used for that purpose, so in the case if it's not, they could block it off, and then if the fire trucks want to leave out that way, it would be easier for them. They would just leave and move on. I don't see too many issues with that. So options for council. Council may choose to support the staff recommendation, may choose not to, or may choose to refer back to staff. And with that, the staff recommendation is that the zoning amendment bylaw be read a 1st and 2nd time and proceed to a public hearing, that the holding of the public hearing be scheduled for December 13th, and that staff give proper notice. And then regarding the development permit with variances, the delegations and submissions be heard at the December 13th public hearing, and that council consider the permit following the adoption of zoning amendment bylaw 1380-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Grace?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm so excited, I'd love to just move this right away, but I'll give everyone else a chance to talk too. But I just think to have 23 bedroom units with yards close to schools, appropriate parking, I think the variances are really minor in nature. This is greatly needed for our town, so I'm really excited to see this. I did have one question for the director, and that's if you know if there's an affordable component to this at all.
Through the chair to Councillor Grice, not that I'm aware of.
I mean, even that being said, I think it relieves pressure to the rental market anyways, and so maybe that'll perhaps open up affordable units elsewhere, but this is great. I'll give someone else a chance to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through to the director. When we talked about 3 stories versus 4, you mentioned there's an elevation drop here. How large is that drop?
Through the chair to Councillor Mattis, the elevation drop is approximately 3 to 5 feet.
Okay, so
Yeah.
half a floor.
Close to half a story, yeah.
Okay, that answers that question. Second question was regarding the access across the Fortis property. Would we have any requirement? Is that an area where sidewalks need to be built? Would we have a requirement for sidewalks over on that street? Because there is a need for sidewalks there and traffic control. We've had delegations in front of us before talking about speeding on that road, and sidewalks would help. And whether there'd be any requirement of the builder to put sidewalk over on that side, seeing as we put it on the other side.
Through the chair, Councillor Mattis, are you referring to the Merlot frontage?
Yeah, the exit where they're proposing the road across the Fortis right away, where it comes out onto Merlot. Yeah.
I can definitely look into that and have that information for you at the public hearing. It'll be in our development servicing bylaw as a designated corridor for sidewalks, and I can provide that to you, but I don't have that right now.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Benton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the comments before mine that I think this is exciting. I think that fits well in the space. I don't know, I've never been sitting here when we've been looking at something like this, so I'm all in favor of the proposal. My question is just about the, if that sort of driveway, the one that we were just talking about, is not allowed. I know you mentioned in your report that wouldn't be an issue because there is an access off of Lakeside and you can turn around in there, but is that normal for a complex of this size, this many units, that you would only have one way in and one way out?
Through the chair to Councillor Bentamila. An example, Arbor Lane there has the one way in, so I next door.
Do they have a fence in between that they can open up in the case of emergency?
They do, but it's blocked for most of the time, is my understanding. So they would just have one way in, and I don't know how many units are in the half, but there maybe 16 units on the one side, perhaps in that ballpark. So the director of operations may also be able to comment on developments that have only one-way access in and out.
So that is one that I can think of.
Both ends of that Arbor development.
Yeah, both
Same
ends
issue.
of it. Yeah, it's closed off by
It was
fencing.
initially a drive-through, but then they divided it in half. One half rental, one half sold.
Lots of competitive. Yeah, I think I know the one that you're talking about. I thought that was a barrier that was removable in the case of emergencies. It just, I mean, if it's standard, then it's standard. It just seems kind of strange to me that you'd only have one way in and one way out, and it also seems that you could potentially just, like, you know, you come in off of Lakeside, go through it, instead of going straight out, go through this other drive aisle by units 1 and 5 to give yourself 2 ways in and 2 ways out if that other option doesn't work.
Yeah, I remember that was talked about, having another access from Lakeside, and there is some challenges with the grade there. So the way they position that building with the 4.5 meter setback, you know, the one I talked about, the front meter setback, it may be difficult to put another driveway exit through there. And that's also another another break in our curb, because we do have sidewalk there, so ideally the less driveways along a sidewalk, the better, just for pedestrian interaction too.
Last question on the subject. Will we know that information before we get to the end of this process in a couple weeks or a month's time?
Sorry, through the chair to Councilor Ventimiglia, what information do you want to know again? If a driveway is possible by units 1 to 5?
No. If they're going to be given their
Fortis.
exit off of
Oh, the Fortis.
onto Merlot.
I'll follow up again and see.
Councillor Schwarzenegger.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm excited about this project too. I think it's great. I think the variances are good. The only thing I don't quite understand is when I count the visitor parking spaces, there's 7 plus 1 handicap spot, and I believe you're supposed to have 8 plus 1. Or is the 1 handicapped included in the 8?
Through the chair to Councilor Schwarzenberger, you're required to have 0.2 per unit, so 0.2 times 20 is 4. Yes, 4. So they're only required to have 4 visitor spaces.
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
No, I saw 8, I saw 8 there. You did the math for me, but then there was an 8 there, so I missed that, sorry. Anyway, I think that's a great project, and I'd have agreed to the variance to miss 1 parking spot, visitor parking spot, if that was needed.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Worship. Back to the Merlot access again. So just in case of emergency, is that blocked off, or would people actually be able to exit out of there, albeit maybe on a dirt road where they're in emergency?
Well, the idea would be that it's the one way in and out is fine for emergencies, but if a big fire truck is in there, then they would have a key or something, so they could leave that way for convenience sake. But the way the drive aisles are and the turning radius is it's fine to actually go in and turn around and come out. But we would make sure that that's blocked off, whether that's a gate, and then the fire department could leave that way if they want, or else Bob will complain. So.
But the hope is that it will be properly paved and it
Yeah.
actually be a second exit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've had this application since the summertime, or even April or May. So we wanted to move this project forward, and then I'll try to follow up with the province as to. I'm not sure why they haven't been successful, or there is a bit of a runaround because it's actually Crown property, so it's provincial land. That Fortis then is a right of way, so they're sort of getting a runaround between Fortis and the province. So I'll try to assist in the process.
Okay. Thank you.
They've always used that as an entrance to that property. Even when those houses were there, there was always a driveway there. And they also had the other driveway. They always have 2 driveways. One off the lakeside, one off of Merlot. I can't see them denying them just to cross the right of way. It's not affecting them in any way. And right now you can drive across there. It's all level.
Sure. Thanks. I also want to add too is that I also do believe that there is some servicing that's fed from that street, so they will have to do upgrades to that area anyway. So I'm sure they'll be speaking with the province in some sooner rather than later.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
Thank you. Just back to the parking for a minute, because I was doing the same counting that Councillor Schwarzenberg was doing, and also coming up with the same number. On page 18 of your report, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page and working with the same numbers so that we're not missing something or another variance isn't required. But in your required allowed column for visitor parking spaces, you have 8. And then in your proposed column, you also have 8. Variance required, no. And then in parking spaces for disabled, required or allowed is 1, proposed is 1, variance is no. But I can only count 8 total also.
Page 4 of the report, one of them has a typo because page 4 says 40 plus visitor, 4 visitor is the RM2 zoning, and then proposed is 40 plus 8 visitor.
Oh, page 18 says something different.
Yeah, it's on page 8. It's on page 18 where it says 8 and 8, and it should say 4.
Through the chair, that's just a simple designer mistake. That's their zoning compliance table. So when they submit their drawings for the application, they provide a table that shows what the bylaw requirement is and what they're providing. So what you're talking about on page 18 is what the designer put. So the designer thought that 8 parking spaces were required.
Great.
8 visitor parking spaces.
So he thinks he's giving us 8+1.
Yeah, when really only
That's
4 are
fine.
required.
Yeah.
And you didn't tell
But you can only correct so many times, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments, or Councilor Schwarzenberger?
Thank you, Worship. I would like to move the proposed motion that zoning amendment bylaw 1380.19 be read a first and second time and proceed to public hearing, and that the holding of the public hearing be scheduled for December 13th, 2021, and that staff give notice to the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act, and the development permit for variances, that the delegations and submissions be heard for the development permit with variances 2021-18 at the December 13th, 2020 public hearing, and council considered development permit with variances 2021-18, and you moved it for me.
I was hitting buttons.
Anyway, the rest of it, that's what I'm moving.
No, I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Second bylaw is the 2021-2025 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw 140201. CFO, I don't know that we're at the point to give this first, second, and third reading, are we?
So all these things on this report have already been approved by council. And so it's a matter of consolidating them into an amendment bylaw before the end of the year. And that way the proper adjustments can be made on the financial statements. Thank you. Did you want me to review?
No, I thought we still hadn't finished reviewing our budget and or making decisions on looking where we're gonna get that $200,000 from.
Okay, this is for 2021.
Okay.
So this is an amendment to the 2021 to 2025 financial plan. So these,
Yeah, you said it's already been approved, and yet when I look on if I'm looking at the correct thing, I see a chart that says fob camera, finance, public works, and yet we discussed that at budget this afternoon for public works.
yeah, because I found that in the budget, and it was earmarked that those funds were supposed to come from, well, that's the finance one that you're looking at.
Okay, but
Right.
it does say PW one, it says finance, PW, says.
Oh, yeah, it's just, that it's combination, it's finance and public works
Mhm.
together.
Okay.
Right, so we spent the finance portion, but we didn't spend the public works portion.
Mhm.
And both of those amounts, were indicated that they were supposed to come from COVID. I just didn't see that in the financial plan.
Alrighty, recommendation is the council give first, second, and third reading to the 2021-2025 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw 140201. Anybody like to move that recommendation? Both Councilor Schwarzenberg, second, Councilor Rice. Any further questions? Councilor Michelle?
I think I'm with you, Your Worship, because if you look at budget bylaw for down at water services, the budget amount is in there, and yet we were just discussing that this afternoon.
Yeah, because in the I showed you the 2021 activity, what the actual reserves were in the financial plan, and then I showed you the amendment column for the things that are on the bylaw here tonight. And that 66,000 is regarding that Black Sage insurance claim that was presented to council earlier in the year. And now we have the actual actual report from the insurance agent or adjuster as to what they will pay for, and the work is completed. So it's important to get that into the 2021 budget or into the financial plan.
This is
Yeah,
2021.
this is just 2021.
I understand that. But we also have 2022, 23, 24 budget amounts in here already as well. You can look right at it.
Yeah, but that's from the financial plan that was presented earlier this year.
The numbers have changed, but.
So this isn't the budget?
No.
No.
It's an amendment to the budget that you approved earlier this year.
Got it.
Yeah. And the only reason that I do it now is so that when I prepare the financial statements, I can include this type of information in there and adjust the reserves accordingly.
So any changes that were made this afternoon are not reflected in these numbers yet?
No, it has nothing to do with anything we did this afternoon.
Yeah, just add to that, although we say the budget, like 2022, 2023, 2024, it's not the actual budget. The actual budget will decide each year just for next year's budget. It just called budget there.
Projected.
Yeah.
It's projected.
Yeah.
And then it'll be amended based on the actual.
Budget. Why do we have to do this again? Cart before the horse.
We talked this afternoon about all the requirements of the
Councilor
government.
Benjamin?
I think just if I understand correctly, we're just amending our last year's budget before we get to year end, so that everything we actually spent is in there before you close out the year. And then with our new budget that we've been discussing earlier this afternoon and a couple of weeks ago, we'll do another one of these in a couple weeks or months' time, starting in 2022 and on.
Well, we won't do another one of these.
It'll be the updated version.
For the 2022 to 2026, it'll be updated. I've already included this in the reserve schedules that you got this afternoon.
Here's one.
Clear, that's pretty clear.
We'll do this again next time.
Yeah.
At the same time of year next year.
We got a motion.
No, I
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions for 2021? I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to business, GIA Waste Connections Christmas Bike Build. CFO.
Thank you, Richard. As per the grant aid policy, we have another application for an unconditional donation. These are at the full discretion of council and require council approval. It's for a $1,000 donations to Waste Connections Christmas Bike Build to buy and build bikes for needy families in the south of Okanagan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the Chief Financial Officer? Councilor Benjamin.
I don't know if this is for the chief financial officer, but I don't think this isn't something that we've contributed to before, is it?
Sorry?
This is not something we've contributed to in the past?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so.
I think it's been ongoing for a number of years.
I think it's come forward before that.
So that in these bikes, does it say in here if these bikes are for South Okanagan or?
Is this been ticked in
It says something
South
about-
Okanagan area?
Yeah.
Whatever that means. I think that's right. It didn't pass last time.
Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. For myself, I like our grant and aids to be a little more locally directed as opposed to South Okanagan directed. Once we hand out the money, we have no control over where it goes. And so our only control is to ensure that it's in Oliver, because that's really what it's for, is Oliver. So.
I would agree.
Yep.
So for myself, there's no proposed motion required. I guess on that basis, I will make a motion that staff communicate with Waste Systems that we will not be participating. They didn't actually fill out a form, did they? It's just a letter? Like a grant and aid request?
Oh, sorry, no, they sent an email.
I'll second the motion.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? Seeing any, I will call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to our last item under business, Old Memorial Pool Change House, Portuguese Club, corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is to inform Council of the Old Memorial Pool Change House lease agreement. A little bit of background: in 2014, Council authorized an execution of the lease agreement with Oliver Parks and Recreation for a term of 20 years, set to expire March 31st, 2034. Earlier in that meeting, or early in that year of 2014, the Okanagan Portuguese Club had provided the club's financials overview to Council, seeking some assistance to continue operating their club. And that was that occurred through the lease agreement with Oliver Parks and Recreation Society. Since that time, the Portuguese Club has vacated the building, and that has resulted in Oliver Parks Recreation being responsible for the property taxes, and in 2021, the amount paid was $4,777.60 with no option for the homeowner's grant. Staff met with Oliver Parks and Rec regarding the lease agreement and the taxation hardship, the current state of the building, and what the potential best use may be for that building. Oliver Parks and Rec advised that the cost of upkeep and taxes and utilities for 2021 are estimated to exceed $20,000. The building, due to its age, is deteriorating. The HVAC is not functioning, the doors and windows are not to standard, and they have done a rough estimate and anticipate the repairs at over $100,000. As well, that building is not under our management agreement with Oliver Parks and Rec Society. So to try to resolve the initial needs so the taxes are not applied for the 2022 year, for the taxation levy, BC Assessment must be notified of a lease expiry or termination between the town and then Oliver Parks and Rec. So that's the motion before Council this evening, is to terminate that lease. Oliver Parks and Rec are still, they would still be interested in utilizing the building in some way and helping the town to determine what the best use is. We need to maybe undertake a property inspection to determine what works are required, and to do a general analysis of the building so we can bring it into our insurance portfolio, because those are the questions that they'll ask, sort of what state the building is at. In the future, we can maybe determine what service groups might be interested in that building, and the town could undertake repairs to meet that potential use, and hopefully access some grants to do some renovations to the building. So the recommendation before Council is that Council authorizes the early expiry of the lease agreement with Oliver Parks and Rec Society for the Old Memorial Pool Change House, legally described as Lot 362, DL 2450S, SDYD Plan 1966, except plans A1274, 18418, 2723, M15330, 30688, 38045, the northerly portion, and that staff add the property to its insurance portfolio. Thank you.
Councilor Mattis.
I'd like to thank the corporate officer for reading that.
So we didn't have to.
So, I will make the motion for the purposes of discussion.
Second.
Second. Any questions? Comments? Councilor Mattis.
Thank you, Worship. I did a quick math based on the list at the report from the Parks and Rec there. They calculated about $130,000 minimum to bring it up to anywhere useful. So something for us to consider down the road. I heard this afternoon that we could not use our land reserves, unfortunately, for this type of a project. So it's something we would have to weigh. We did have a public or a community services building at one time just down the street, and it wasn't that long ago that we parted company with that building. So not that we would be able to part company with this given where it's located, but just throwing that out.
I not seeing any more hands, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to correspondence. Corporate officer, not much here today.
No, thank you, Your Worship. There's a piece of correspondence dated November 2nd from Minister Adrian Dix replying to the Town of Oliver's support to the City of Langley's resolution for improvements to the pre-hospital care system. So the proposed motion is the items listed in L1 and the weekly mail be received.
Thank you.
So moved.
So moved. Second. Seconded. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Go to council reports. Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Your Worship. We got a good one this week. Thursday, November 11th, along with many of my council colleagues, attended the Remembrance Day service at the Cenotaph and then the special tea at the Legion. Monday, November 15th, I had a Zoom meeting with Interior Health and United Way regarding the cold weather shelter in Oliver and how they can support. Later on Monday, had a 100 by 100 committee meeting, and please watch for the movie that was made about the celebration, which will be, it's out there now, so it's going to get released in various platforms soon. And then even later that day was an Oliver Parks and Rec Society meeting. So exciting news about that is the Lions Park bathroom renovation is going out to tender. It will hopefully be complete by June of 2022. The washroom is going to include showers, which will be of huge value to our community. Wednesday, November 17th was a cold weather shelter meeting at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So the outcome, Cole's Notes version of that was that it's going to be essentially just an emergency cold weather shelter that would be triggered by an Environment Canada cold weather warning. Thursday, November 18th, Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting. We discussed the clock, the active transport plan, and possible areas for local murals. And then later on November 18th, sat in on a call with various ministers regarding the flooding situation. Excuse me. And Friday, November 19th, had a follow-up cold weather shelter meeting with BC Housing, Interior Health, and the United Way to discuss the outcomes of the church meeting, including funding and staffing opportunities. So hopefully more to come from that, and then today's meetings, and that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Councilor Grace. Councilor Mattis.
Thank you, Your Worship. November 10th, South Okanagan Aquatic Center Steering Committee. And November 11th, the Remembrance Day ceremonies. And November 17th, the Library ORL Library Board meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Mattis. Councilor Duncan.
Well, Councilor Grace wins this week. But on Wednesday, November 10th, I attended the South Okanagan Aquatic Advisory Committee meeting as well as a Rotary Club social event that evening, and learned about some of the projects that the Rotary Club has been supporting over the years and this year. On Thursday, November the 11th, attended the Remembrance Day ceremonies at Town Hall. On Sunday, November the 14th, I was at Triangle Park with some of the light up committee, decorating some of the trees in preparation for light up, and we're very excited, thanks to Public Works this year, to have a big new fancy lit up tree on December 3rd. So Public Works worked really hard to make that happen, and in conjunction with Fortis, they're going to get some lights up on the big tree. No, the big tree. I don't know what to call it. The big tree at bottom of Triangle Park. And budget meetings today. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thursday, November 11th, I attended the Remembrance Day services in Pentictus. Thursday, the 18th, I attended the Downtown Advisory Committee meeting with Councillor Grice, and she highlighted the things that were discussed there. And then earlier today, the operating budget meetings.
Thank you, Councilor Schwarzenberger. For myself, on November 10th, Heritage Committee meeting. November 11th, Remembrance Day ceremony and Legion Tea. November 17th, I attended the cold weather shelter discussion at the Seventh-day Adventist Church with Councilor Grice. November 18th, RDUS board meeting, and November 19th, RDUS budget. And November 22nd today, RDUS e-scrap training, and today's meetings. Our next regular meeting of council is December 13th, 2021. That was the last meeting for the year. Acting mayor scheduled for November is Councilor Bentamila, and December, January, February is Councilor Schwarzenberg. We have no public question period, so I will look for a motion to adjourn. Moved in second. Public question, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. And I believe we have a budget meeting to bring back out of recess.
I solved our budget shortfall, so I'm excited to present that to you.
Okay.
I solved it, yeah.
Foreman?
I have a proposal.
Are you kidding?
No, you can stay.
We're sacrificing Randy now.
That's 250 right there. Out of the box.
Are you doing that now, or what do you do?
I have a proposal. As in, Councilor Grice has a proposal. My proposal is, yeah, you're, you go home, no. What I'm thinking is we probably have about $207,000 to cut if we're going to save that entire police services budget. But there's some things that we don't know yet, and one of the things that we don't know yet is about the plaza, whether we're gonna get that funding or not. And that's $300,000 right there that would go back into our general reserve, which could be used to offset that $207,000 potentially if that project isn't funded. We're not gonna know the police costs until probably close to final budget, which is gonna be late April. Hopefully sooner than that. So without wanting to rush judgment and cut anything out of the budget at this point in time without those bits of information being known, I'm quite willing to wait a bit and see if we get some further information. It may not happen until, I don't know, January or February, but that would give us some time to get that information and then make some those tough decisions, if we have to really make those tough decisions a little later. That's the only thing I'm thinking at this point in time. Councillor Madden?
I think we'd still have to move ahead with water sewer so that we can set rates for the end of the year operating.
Can we do that?
No, that'll be acceptable, though.
So we'll just do that separately
Yeah,
at another
it
meeting.
would be, that would be separate.
I want to hear the proposal.
I do too. Yeah. It does.
All right,
Those
here's
are
what I
all
got. So $217,000. My thought was to take half out of the police reserve, so $108,500. 66,000 from the utility rate increase, 20,000 that we cut from the facade program, and 22,500 from the COVID fund would equal the 217,000. Further, in order to save the downtown development plan and food action committee, to cut those two down to 13,000 each, and take the funds, I don't know if this is possible because I have no idea what this is, but there is a reserve called the Local Improvement Fund that has $26,000 in it.
The local improvement fund, ours is for specific projects, like they're restricted, I believe. So I don't think you can touch that local improvement fund, but I can bring that forward.
I'd be interested to know what that is, and that's aside from the 217
Yeah.
anyways, so it's just to try to keep this off the chopping block.
I think you'll find when we get the report on the reserves and why we'll discover that the reason they're separated the way they are is because it's been attempted many times to try and amalgamate and make the list smaller, but there are specific reasons why they are separated. For each one of them separate.
I mean, based on just the name itself,
It's been tried.
they sound like they would fall under a local improvement plan.
What?
I just think, Councillor Gray, I think those are some great options for us to consider. Councillor Wittenberg?
Thank you. I thought Councillor Grice was gonna say we should buy $100,000 worth of Lotto Max tickets, but.
Invest in Bitcoin perhaps?
But anyway, the one thing I'd like staff to look into is that property reserve that is for new acquisitions and improvements, new builds on property town, and whether those funds can be used to build the plaza if we get the funding for the other $700,000. And if those funds could be used, that would free up the $300,000 for the current year.
Is that our legislation or provincial legislation?
Community charter.
Community charter?
Yeah, I was reading it, and
I'll go read it.
that might be a good, like it seems like that might be a good fit. Yeah.
And I'm gonna buy Lotto Max anyway.
See you.
I think we can take all this information back and staff can regroup and look at it. If we can put up forward another version of it, we can have a meeting maybe December 13 at 4 o'clock, which can give council a little bit more time to deliberate again.
I would like it if we could move that meeting until January, as Councillor Maddox will not be here for the December 13th meeting, and I think it would be good for all of us to be here for a budget discussion.
Okay.
Councillor Michelle?
We need to, what is the date that we need to approve the water budget by? So
That still has to be done on the 13th.
We can do that.
Yeah, and do you want to do, like you're talking about the bylaw? Or-
For the rates.
Yeah, the bylaw for the rates can be in January as well. But I think that you can, if you adopt the bylaw and then it's retroactive to January 1st, that'll still allow you to, we don't have to bill out till, the first quarter, till
But there's a time frame that the budget has to be approved, the water budget. If it's not unanimous, then it has to go Victoria. That's in
legislation.
That's
the
in
water budget has to be
absolutely.
into Victoria in January.
Unless it's unanimous of all council, it must be sent to Victoria for approval. It's weird, I know, but that's how it works.
That's by order.
That's good to know.
That's part of our letters pattern.
Yeah.
An order in council.
Order of council.
So we can bring the water and sewer back on December 13th.
Yeah.
Leave the
And then
January.
that'll give you more time to
But
send
we
it
won't
off
be
to
unanimous.
Victoria, because how long they take to approve it. in time for the first quarter billing.
Oh,
Or disapprove it,
Yeah.
whatever the
think-
case may be.
But probably it's still prudent to have a 4 o'clock meeting at 10:30,
Mhm.
so we have extra time to go over the water and see.
Councilor Schwarzenberg?
If I recall, when I had my prostate surgery, I had to phone into the meeting because I had to vote on the water budget to make it unanimous. So the counselor,
It's not gonna be unanimous.
Mattis is
It's not gonna be
It's
unanimous.
already clear, it's not.
It's already
going to be
clear, it's not
unanimous.
mandatory this year.
already then.
Alrighty then, so
So
let's,
let's-
all good?
Well, I would phone in if required, but it's not gonna be unanimous.
But it would be good to know if we still need all of us or not, regardless. Because it seems to be quite strict in the way that it's written. So if we need 7 votes, whether or not it's regardless, then Councilor Mattis will have to call in.
So that'll be, the corporate officer will check the letters patent and the order in council possible. See the
I'm
requirement.
pretty aware that for the order of council, all council has to approve that budget.
That's right.
If it's not, then it has to go to Victoria for approval.
Yeah, no,
So
but,
if-
but does all council have to vote? If it's not, if,
I might have to reread that part.
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, and the part is, I mean, if it's going to be approved, then yes, they all have to be approved. But if it's not going to be approved, do they all have to vote?
We'll check it.
Could I make a suggestion that if we all do have to vote, we could reconvene next Monday for that, to vote on water and sewer? I'm sorry.
Let us know, Diane.
It's new for you.
I'm looking, I don't know,
This is
get
the
it.
last day of patent.
I think if you wouldn't want somebody missing and have it not be unanimous because of that reason, but if somebody's going to vote against it, then it probably really doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, we'll find out.
As long as you had enough to have a quorum and you had the positive vote.
Can't answer that question.
That being said, people are not supposed to show up to a meeting and remind me that they're supposed to be amenable to the occasion, so we all should be open to being yes, so we all should be at.
Oh, it is possible, I mean, I will be available. I'll make myself available.
Do we have enough
You're right, it is
information to vote on it now?
You gotta change your vote on it.
Could
Change
change
yours, and you might change yours.
Do you have a problem?
You
with
probably don't
voting on
have
it
it
now?
to be able to vote on it.
Do you have a problem with voting on it now?
I don't know if that's right.
Well,
There's no rush.
Well, I'm just trying to comment after that, that's all.
The next one.
we know what changes you wanna make.
To the water budget, I don't think we made any changes.
No, well, the changes that, the 80% for the new operations manager.
Counselor.
I had a question.
But that was approved.
I have a
So
question.
we'd be voting on the budget as discussed and approved this afternoon.
Yeah, with those in there or not, with that outside of it?
Council voted it in this
Yeah.
afternoon
Okay,
by resolution.
yeah, okay. That was like 100%.
That's why it was, that's why he was going to vote against it.
So what we're saying is we're not going to be unanimous anyways, but we're ready to vote on the budget, knowing we're not going to be unanimous, when we go to Victoria.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think you better
Can you
have
do
it more
that?
concrete.
Could there not be another meeting date?
Our numbers should be more concrete and just, this is
Why
kind of
can't we do a
ambiguous.
different date?
A little too ambiguous for me.
We can, I think, I don't know.
We can call a special meeting.
What about the 29th, next Monday?
We can do it after the tour.
I'm sorry.
The rest of us, our schedules are busy because we have jobs. Yours is busy because you're going hunting.
And the mayor's
So don't feel sorry for you.
29th is a Monday. Yeah.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is, it's the end of this.
I think it's stuck in you.
Councilor
I know this
Michelle.
one.
Yeah, Your Worship, I had a question on the funding of that new position anyway, because currently staff, they allocate whatever time they spent to different accounts. And yet the revenue shows it as water and sewer only. Is this person only gonna work on water and sewer? And are they gonna work 80% of their time on water and 20% on sewer? I mean, this new position's gonna be working in multiple accounts, so they're gonna be charging to all those accounts, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it shows.
Depending on, it will be a majority water. I don't know the exact breakdown.
Yeah, but it shows.
Sewer may be 30% or.
It shows as the revenue for this as coming out of those two functions only, so that's kind of confusing as well. It should not have even been presented that way, because obviously this person's gonna be working on other accounts, he's gonna be charging to those other accounts.
I was under the impression that it was a utility manager.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be water and sewer, but they may be involved in some odd things, but the majority of their time is water and sewer, and water is probably the biggest component.
But there could be times when you, or the public works manager, is doing things for them. as well, right?
No, right now, I'm coding off in all three budgets every day pretty much when I do my job.
Yeah. And this new position would be doing the same thing, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it would be geared
Yeah.
higher to the water budget, probably.
Understood that it would be, but it's still, it doesn't show that as a revenue. I mean, so there's gonna be stuff that's charged to other accounts as well anyway, some this time.
Is there a change of percentages that would make you vote in favor of it?
No.
Like if it was
No, I just wanna
60%?
make sure when you do hire a guy,
If it was
charge
40%? No.
This
So
is
that's
the
just a
worst,
vote.
this is the worst case scenario for giving.
Yeah. So the
It
answer's
can
still
only
no.
get better from here.
Or yes.
Yeah, comment, but.
See, just think about how we forward, and if that's the only thing, the handover is the utility manager, is it possible to take that off, just pass the rest of the budget now and figure out something later? Because if go to Victoria.
Doesn't matter.
It's all worked out before.
Oh,
We've
okay.
been through this process,
Yeah.
sending it to Victoria before. It all works out in time, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world.
No, it isn't.
Corporate officer?
I think I might have found it, but it might take me a minute to read it, but I'm just concerned about sending things to Victoria because of the state of emergency that's happening in the province. Communication with them is very slow right now, and I don't know if we want to hold up a bylaw with the province, but just let me quickly glance at this.
Maybe that'll be a reason.
So while the corporate officer's glancing at it, we've been chatting back here quietly, but I would be more comfortable having this water budget meeting at a meeting where all of us can be here. Because I know that Councilor Michelle says he's gonna vote against, the budget for the reasons. But we are all meant to show up open and amenable to persuasion, and we may have another conversation that changes his mind. And if that's the case, we wouldn't want to have to send the budget off because Councilor Mattis wasn't at the table. So it makes the most sense for us all to be here or all to be available. And I think we can make that happen before Councilor Mattis steps out. I mean, it might still end up being the same, but it would be really silly for the 6 of us to decide, yeah, this is great, and to be missing one, and then we have to send it off regardless.
I'll phone him.
You don't want to phone in.
I don't want
Nobody blames you, but you don't want to phone in.
splashing
It's
in the
fine.
background, saying yea or nay.
How about next Wednesday?
Sure.
The first,
Yeah.
I have to work. What time?
I mean, I have to work
4
also.
p.m.
I was assuming at night.
I have to work probably at 5. We have a show that day at the theater. But 5 would be the latest.
Wednesdays are?
First.
Oh, do it in the afternoon. 9 o'clock.
No. I might be working for a bit. I have a silver meeting, and then I might be working tomorrow, so that's not a
I'd like
day for me.
I'd like to do it early, because I don't know if I'm working that day or yet. So, but I never start before 11, so if you do it at 9 o'clock, I can be here and then go back.
If we could set a time earlier, like I know if I can be there, usually in the mornings I'm usually driving up and down from
So Grace?
I wonder, just based on the corporate officer's comments, so if we are in agreement with the rest of the budget, if we should, I mean, I don't wanna see that position go away, but if we should perhaps pull that position out of the budget so we can pass the rest of the budget. I mean, I'm concerned too about it, things getting delayed in Victoria. If we can pass the rest of the budget and then
revisit the position on its own.
So then,
But what does that mean for the position? Because it needs to be in the water, yeah, it needs to be funded. So if we pull it out, then it's done for the year, or we have a separate conversation and we just send one big line item to
It's just
Victoria, it doesn't
skirting
really
around
make,
it.
yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
All right, never mind.
I mean, if somebody wants to vote against the budget and wants to deal with the repercussions of it being sent off to Neverland and taking months to come back, then that's just what we deal with.
when are you leaving, Councilor Morris?
This 5th, I believe, the weekend. Saturday, I believe.
I think the 29th, the 30th, or the 31st all make sense.
Or I guess you could just, approve this budget, the entire budget, and then any changes you make down the road with that affects the police or, the land reserve we can find out about, those can be put through as amendments. Right?
We just need to do.
No, we just need
Just
to
do
do
the water and sewer, that's all we need to do.
Yeah.
All we need to
It's
do.
only water, sewer, it's not general.
Okay.
That's not even sewer, it's just water, strictly water. So none of those things were apply to water. The policing, the land, none of that applies to the water budget.
So why not just approve it now, then?
The water budget, because the thing is, it's gotta go Victoria's, so we did offer that, but we could vote on it right now, I guess we could.
Yeah, you could.
Right, and then if we come to some sort of, agreement about the water, or about the utility manager, then
Well,
that
that's-
goes through.
If we approve it now, it's in the budget. It's
That
either
can't
in
be
or it's
amended.
outside.
You can't,
If you, no, you can't.
can't go spend another $130,000 actually for the budget.
Well, you can amend it, but.
All
So
we're
what
gonna see
about-
is
Then you're gonna send it off to Providence.
What about,
Yeah, we might as well just vote now.
what about the black
Let's
sage
just approve it
amendment
now.
that we just put through?
Yeah, just vote for it now, vote against it now, and we'll get it done.
Yep.
I don't have a
Because
problem.
we didn't change anything else except, in terms of water, I think that was the only item in there that was water, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, but now, exactly, but now you have me wondering about the amendment that we just, gave 3 readings on, that took 60,000 out of the, water fund as an amendment, and now you're saying Victoria doesn't care.
That
about
doesn't trigger Victoria.
They don't,
They don't look at the amendments.
60
They only look at the budgets, not the amendments.
well, they don't care about the amendments.
But that was,
That was
that
unanimous.
approved unanimously?
So it was approved unanimously.
Oh, so then
That was
it's,
for 2021.
And it doesn't
oh,
require
only
review.
if
And it was
only if
21,
you
right?
disagree, it goes
Yeah,
to
that was the
Victoria.
issue.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
If it's 100%, then
Oh,
it
then
stays
they
here.
don't care.
Then they don't care.
I don't
Was-
see any reason we can't vote on the water, but
Yeah, right now, yeah, I would recommend that.
I'm good with voting now, if everybody else is.
We see what we're voting on.
You never have disagreements all the time.
That the water budget as presented this afternoon, or that the water budget as presented, including the, what did they call those things?
Business case, a business case now.
Yeah, including the business case
and rates, I guess.
and rates.
Where is it?
Well, the rates would be 5%.
Five.
And the rate schedule as presented
I don't know what page it's on.
be approved.
What should do?
Did we complete item 10 before we left, or did we cut that short because there wasn't enough time?
Item 10.
Oh, the
I don't
part-time.
remember voting on that.
Yeah, we did complete.
Yeah, we did
approved the
part-time
10.
went 75%.
Yeah.
Again, now some of that'll be water.
What page are we on? Anybody?
Pardon me?
Is there a page that we need to-
And it should say be approved, not as approved.
It's on a lot of pages.
Yeah, we approve.
But the water 5-year financial plan. And should we put and budget?
Well, maybe staff can give us the.
And budget as presented, including the business cases and water rate schedule, be approved.
Being approved here.
Unless somebody wants something else in there.
I'll second that.
Moved in second. Any further discussion?
Now's your chance, Petra. Swing 'em.
Where did they go? I'm thinking let's give them a week, guys, let's get back on.
I'm thinking the 9% is not palatable with me, and that's what this is, because you're stealing from the reserve account. The reserve account was built. Those are capital projects, that money was specifically put in there to develop. It's not written there for operational or hiring more people, so I will not vote against that.
Came
I'm not voting for that.
Came from operations to get in there. in the
But
first place.
it was put in there for specific reasons for capital project. It's not to be spent on wages. So
And you don't think we'd be having a
And
difference?
I might add that that is one real danger of having a big surplus in a capital account, is that then it can be manipulated, people can eyeball that and say, wow, there's not enough there, we can use some of that money. Maybe we shouldn't be going into so much debt, we should be paying out, instead of paying interest, we should be paying that down so we don't have to borrow so much.
Well,
I mean, what's the point to having $2 or $3 million in the capital reserve account if then it's eyeballed as not for the projects that we collected that money for, but for other stuff? I disagree with that completely.
I also look at it like running a household, and at the end of the year, you got leftover money, so you put it in the bank so you can afford a house. But then when you need a new car, you go to the house fund and you buy a car because that's what's important at the time. It's kind of, you're running a house here, and it's not that, and when you're running a house, it's like, no, we can't buy food because we put the money away for the house.
Not your money, it's taxpayers' money.
I understand that, but if we're still, it's not my money, but I'm with the rest of the council and in charge of running a house.
Well, whatever, that's fine.
Just a different view, that's all.
So the motion was slightly modified, are we okay with that?
I just tried to make it read a little better.
I mean, if you wanna hire this guy,
That's fine.
then argue to
Same
increase
words,
the rate,
different
don't
order.
argue about that. But don't go take it from reserve account.
Well, again, I would argue we're not taking it from reserve, we're taking it before it rolls into the reserve. It's in operations now, and it won't be until later on, till the end of the year, that they'll roll it into reserves.
Well, 130.
It's still in operations today.
For the next 5 years, there goes a chunky reserve, unless your jack rates up next year. Because, I mean, that's gonna be $600,000.
Well, you may end up coming back here after we get our reserve review and saying, hey, let's lower rates because we've got too much in the reserve. And in the meantime, we do need people to do the job.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Not scary, but that's fine. They'll approve it. At least I can say that if somebody asks me, what the heck you guys doing? No, I didn't agree with that, so.
I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved in second. All the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thanks. It didn't really go this way. All the way down to 2%. Like, it's kept going down.
It was a signature.
Well,